Hi, everybody. Welcome to this conversation today with my friend Nate Stewart. Nate is coming to us from Duluth, Minnesota. You guys still
hmm
have snow on the ground, or have you seen the sun?
Well, I'm really hoping that winter or that summer comes on a weekend this year. That's what we're planning on. So
One
it's
weekend.
any day now. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness! I see you've got the bare tree behind you. That's what made me think that maybe winter was still there. But
It's
anyway,
always
welcome.
here.
It's always there. Nate is the national director of the Mental Health Initiative for Celebrate Recovery. So thanks for being with us today, Nate. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, just in case somebody who's watching doesn't really know what Celebrate Recovery is, would you just give us a couple of sentences about Celebrate Recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered 12-step recovery program, helping people find healing and freedom from their hurts, hang-ups, and habits. So anything that's really holding them back from being everything that God has called them to be, that's what we're trying to do is get rid of those stumbling blocks and get you moving forward.
That's great. And Celebrate Recovery is not just a little fly by night organization, it's been around for like 26 years now, something like that.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
around for a long time, and we've had, I believe the last number is 5 million people have gone through the step studies, and we're in several different countries, several different languages. We're global.
That's great. And some of the prison systems in the United States as well, right?
Absolutely, yes, yes, we are all over the place.
And just so I don't forget this, if somebody wants to connect with Celebrate Recovery and find out how to find a group in their area, where do they go?
They can go to celebraterecovery.com, and on there's a tab that they can click that says find a group, and just click on there. You type in your zip code or your address, and it will tell you the closest groups around you. There's also a Celebrate Recovery app that you can download. It's free, and there's a group locator on that. So if you're traveling around, you can just grab your phone. It's right there.
That's so great. We'll put up that address on the screen. So tell us, tell our viewers about yourself, Nate. How you came to be involved in Celebrate Recovery. Just what's your story?
Yeah, well, Celebrate Recovery became a part of my life about 9 years ago. I started my recovery on my own, just kind of white knuckling it. And I found that yes, I was sober, but I was miserable.
Uh,
And so I decided that I needed to change something, and this was an awesome opportunity to include God in what I was doing. And so I went to Celebrate Recovery, and I found out that it's not just about staying sober; it's about living life with purpose,
mm,
and saying all those bad things that have happened in my life, God can turn those around and use them for good, but I have to be willing to do that. So how do we do that? How do we take our experiences and give God the glory for all that? And a lot of my life, I felt like I really didn't have purpose, that I had no value, that I had my life had no real meaning. Whereas now, I can wake up every day and know I have a reason for being here,
mm.
and there is reason for me to want to keep going, want to keep moving forward.
So that sounds like that was a big change. That's not the way you used to
Absolutely.
feel or experience life. So tell us about that.
Yeah.
Just tell us
Well,
tell us your
one
story.
of the things one of the things that I struggle with is I have clinical depression. I have a borderline personality disorder. So that's where the mental health side comes into this. And when I wasn't addressing that, I was still listening to the lies that my mental health struggles were telling me. And they were saying, you're not good enough, that you are worthless, that you have no purpose. And that is just not true. But my mind did not get that.
Yeah.
And so it was something where I lived my whole life for, I'm 42 years old now. I started with my mental health struggles when I was 10.
Mm,
And through so much of my life, I really felt like I was a mistake,
right.
that I was a good example of a bad example.
Mm.
And
That's
I didn't
painful.
realize, yeah, it is. It is. And it held me back from doing a lot of the things that I know God was calling me to do, uh, that I didn't start doing until I got into Celebrate Recovery, and I started actually saying, "Okay, God, what are your plans?" I'm trusting that you know what you're doing, and I'm trusting that you have a better plan for me than I have for me.
Yeah.
and being able to let him take control of that. That's an amazing experience to be able to find the freedom in that.
Yeah.
To say I don't have to make all these and super important choices, that God can do that for me, and I just have to follow Him. So if as long as I'm listening for His voice, if I'm going to His word,
Yeah.
and I'm saying, okay, God, what do you have for me next?
Yeah.
Then He's going to bring me there, and He's going to bring me through it. It's not always going to be happy. It's not always going to be fun.
No,
You know,
this is earth, not heaven.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forever. So
Yep.
how did the mental illness that you were living with, how did that, so you said you started when it was, or you first remember when you were 10. Was that with depression? Was that the first thing that you noticed, or what did you first notice when you were a child?
When it started out, it was a thing of it manifested physically. So I didn't necessarily feel that I was depressed. If you had asked me as a child, I would not have told you I was depressed. Mm. But what was going on is I was having panic attacks. I was struggling with a lot of stomach aches when I'd wake up because I didn't want to go to school. The anxiety was just too much for me. I had a major change in my life as far as how I moved from Minneapolis, Minnesota, to a little town in northwest Wisconsin, and there were more people in my class in Minnesota than there were people in the entire town in Wisconsin. And I did not adjust to that well at all. And back then, that was 1985. There was not a lot of talk about any kind of mental health,
particularly
anything.
For children, particularly as it related to children. Yeah.
Right. So what kind of struggles can a 10-year-old have anyway? But it turns out there are actually quite a few.
Quite a few, right?
Yeah, and I can look back on it now and say, yeah, there are all kinds of signs that I was withdrawing, I was acting out, and I can look at all that now. But at the time, it wasn't something that people talked about. Right. We did the best we could with what we had. But now we've got a better education system. We've got the ability to do talks like this, right, and share what's going on. So it's getting people to talk about it so that other kids, 10 years old, going through a move or whatever other experience, mm-hmm, that they can be able to say, you know what, I don't feel right. Yeah. Even if they can't put their finger on it, right, they say, I don't feel right.
Aren't going to know the word depressed, but they might say I'm sad. They might say I'm sad,
Yeah.
They'll use different language. So where did that take you? Where did that lead you, like in your teenage and early adult life, so that eventually you felt like you needed Celebrate Recovery? I mean, there were steps, or something happened even as your life progressed.
Yes, I decided that I didn't like feeling how I was feeling. I didn't like the pain, the despair, the feeling of hopelessness, and I wanted some sort of escape. And I found through drugs, I found through alcohol, that I was able to experience a very temporary, but albeit very powerful escape. Yeah. That for that fleeting moment, I felt not horrible. And my choice to cope that way, because I didn't have any other healthy coping skills, my choice to cope that way led to my addiction, so that eventually what had been something that I was leaning on was something that I couldn't get away from. Yeah. And addiction, when your brain actually switches from just trying to figure out something to actually having a full-blown addiction, there's a change in your brain where it becomes an obsession, and it's a very powerful, absolutely, powerful kind of feeling to say, yes, I need that to survive now. Mm-hmm. That it's not just a matter I need it to feel a little better. It's I need that or I will die. Yeah. And so having to have that, and it's a really scary place to be. I didn't like being an addict. I didn't like being an alcoholic. I wanted to have some sort of freedom, because eventually, those little glimpses, they all wore off. Right. Now I was even more of a prisoner than I was before.
Yeah.
So how can I find some sort of freedom from all of it? And that's when Celebrate Recovery came in. And I was able to,
Yeah, tell me about that. So, so were you treated for your mental illness at that point? Were you taking, sorry, I'm asking a personal question, but I think you're willing to. So was the mental illness part of your life, was that being treated, through medication or therapy, or were you just really just self-medicating completely?
I was self-medicating for most of my life. When I was 20, I had tried to take my life, and I was in an acute mental health ward here in Duluth, and it was in there that I finally got the full diagnoses, and I started seeing people giving me tips and tricks on how to help cope with some of this stuff, and I started picking some of that up. I started taking meds. I didn't stay on my medication for a long time. I did what is very common,
Yeah.
and I started feeling better, so I didn't need the meds anymore.
Right.
So I quit taking
Very
those.
common story. Very common story. Yeah.
Absolutely, and so I was trying to use some better coping skills, but I still wasn't using the full toolbox that I had available to me. Um, and, and so when I was going through, there were a lot of ups and downs, of course, with that. And it wasn't until, gosh, it was a few years. I don't even know how many years now, that I finally started going to the doctor and saying, okay, I need medications, which was it was kind of a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, I felt like I was dependent on these other drugs. I didn't want her to be dependent on some other drug now, but it's not. I didn't understand how that worked, and that's not the way that things are going. And so it was a process. It was a long process, a lot of ups and downs. Um, but now that I take my medication regularly, and I have people that I can talk to about what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
Celebrate Recovery gave me that opportunity to be in a community that was safe, to say, you know what, I've got these struggles. I don't, one of the things that I struggle with is suicidal ideation. And every day I wake up and I'm thinking about taking my life. But I have the ability now to call up my sponsor and call up my accountability partners and say, I'm having a rough day.
Yeah.
I need some extra prayer, or I just need somebody to talk to for a little bit so I can get past this moment.
Yeah.
And Celebrate Recovery gives me that. It gives me a family that is centered around Jesus Christ and what he can do for us. And that is so huge. So
Well,
huge.
you just mentioned two things that I think are really critical that I want to call out, and I think it's you're so bold and courageous to say I live with chronic suicidal thoughts. Chronic suicidality. That's just not something that very many people can say, Nate. I mean, not many people feel safe enough to say.
Mm-hmm.
They're either afraid that somebody's going to misinterpret that and then instantly dial 911, or afraid to be around you, or just fearful of, oh, what if I say something that triggers him, and people, you're taking a risk by saying that, and it's so freeing, because I'm sure there are other people who are watching this or listening to this who would very much like to be able to say, I feel this way often. And to know that other people feel that way. And you're saying, this is what I experience. And at the same time, I've learned who to reach out to. I've learned how to bring in support. I don't, typically what we do often would be to isolate, or to pull inside, or keep it hidden, or not talk about it. And you're doing just the opposite. You're actually reaching out and saying, look, this is how I'm feeling. And so you're bringing people close into you to help you walk with that. And that is both brave for you to talk about it, and such a great model for anybody who's watching, thinking, I can't tell anybody. You're saying just the exact opposite. You're saying, no, tell somebody, but tell the right people. Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, tell the right people. And you found the right people in Celebrate Recovery.
Yes, yes. And I would want to remind people that when you come into a Celebrate Recovery meeting, you're meeting with a group of people that may have been there for their first meeting the week before, or they may have been there for years. So you're going to get a varying response. But the whole idea around Celebrate Recovery being a safe place is that we all come in realizing that we're broken, that we have some sort of hurt, hang up, or habit that is holding us back. It just looks different for each one of us. And for me to be able to come in and know the people that I can go to and say, this is what's going on, that they're not going to overreact. That's an amazing tool for me. It's very free. And when I started to talk about my mental health struggles in Celebrate Recovery, how many people came up to me afterwards and said, that is the first time I've ever heard of somebody else who is a follower of Christ say that they struggle with that.
Yeah.
Or this is the first time I felt like I wasn't a freak for taking my medication.
Yes.
And it's so much of what we're doing is, like you said, removing the isolation. It's bringing each other together and saying, we are not alone in this.
That's
that
right.
There are other people who are struggling the same way that we are.
And not only are you not alone, I think what I'm hearing you say, you have such a strong story of hope. I mean,
yes.
You have a story of hope that that not only are you not alone, but that there's help and there's places of healing. And I think you would, well, I don't put words in your mouth, but I think you would say you have found a measure of healing in your, not only for your mind and your body through medical care, but for your soul as well. And that, I think, is so hopeful to people who are living with a mental illness and a hurt, a habit, a hang up that's interfering with their life.
Yep, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I've found with sharing. The more I share, the more hope I feel. To be able to know that God is using me.
I love that. Just say that again. That was really
the more I share, the more hope I feel. God is using me, and He's using me in a powerful way to impact people, and to know that I'm making a difference. To know that I'm not always going to feel the same pain that I felt growing up.
Yeah.
That there is hope. One of the things that I mentioned in my testimony is I talk about some physical challenges that I have, and I say God has not chosen to heal my body at this time, but He has chosen to heal my heart, which is so much greater. Yeah. And being able to struggle on a daily basis, but still have joy about my life, still have hope, and know that there is a silver lining, so to speak, of what's going on. And to know that I can help other people, that I have purpose. Yeah. And those people will then turn around and they'll help other people. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
So for people who might not ever have been to Celebrate Recovery or ever been a part of any recovery, AA or any other recovery, movement or organization, why don't you specifically just talk about Celebrate Recovery? So if somebody decides that they found that they've looked on the celebraterecovery.com and they found that there's a group in their area and they walk in the door, what can they expect? Because when I talk to people who've never been before, there's a pretty high fear level, pretty high anxiety level of, what it took to get there, they don't know what to expect. They don't know if they're going to walk in the door and somebody's going to say, okay, so spill your guts, or they just don't know. And so it keeps people from going even the first time. So why don't you just demystify that a little bit for us and tell us, what could you maybe expect if you walk into a Celebrate Recovery meeting?
Absolutely. And, we are all about the newcomer and wanting people to feel welcome and wanting people to experience the joy that we have and the freedom that we have. And so when you come to a Celebrate Recovery meeting, we want you to feel welcome. We want you to come in, and hopefully we don't overwhelm you with, hey, everybody, okay, we're all going to circle around you now. It's something where we bring you in as family. You're forever family at that point. And, we start out with a meal. So it gives us a chance to fellowship together, get a chance to know some of the people that you're going to be spending the next couple hours with.
Okay, so I have to pause there because tell us, is it the same at every Celebrate Recovery? They do the same meal that we do here at Saddleback and Lake Forest? or is it different?
No, I wish we had everybody had the same setup that you guys have, but a lot
Well, I
of
think that's
like
the same at Saddleback and Lake Forest. The meal is there's recovery dogs, which are hot dogs, and oh, what are the
mhm.
hamburgers called? Is it
uh,
recovery? Oh, never mind. I'm getting way off topic.
yeah.
I just think it's so fun that even the hot dogs have their recovery dogs. Anyway, keep going, keep
Oh
going.
yeah. But every celebrate recovery is going to be a little bit different though, and that's an important thing. There are certain things that we stick to. If you're going to call yourself a celebrate recovery, there are certain things we call them in the DNA of a celebrate recovery that you have to adhere to. So you can go into a celebrate recovery in New York and get the same kind of experience that you're going to get in California. That there's a consistency there, but each one's going to have its own special flavor. Now the meals, even some places when you go in, call first and find out, all right, do you guys have a meal or do you not have a meal? And is there a fee for the meal? And usually when especially your first time, no, there's not. But I can't say that for everybody. But we start out with that meal and then we go from there to a large group time. And large group time, I've heard it described this way, that some people walk in and say, I meant to show up to a recovery meeting and I found myself in church.
Yeah.
Or I went to church and I found myself in a recovery meeting.
Huh.
It's kind of a mix in that we start out with worship. We start going out and saying, you know what, Jesus Christ, you are our higher power, and we're going to honor you in this. And we are going to get focused on you and what your will is for our life. Yeah. And to be able to leave the outside world outside for the next 2 hours, that's what we're going to do. And so we get centered on that, and we go through, and each week we read through the 12 steps, or we read through 8 principles based on the Beatitudes and the biblical comparisons that go along with that. Mm-hmm. And we say, okay, this is the foundation that we're going to build our recovery on. We're going to build it on Jesus Christ. We're going to build it on his word, and we're going to take those tools and move forward with it. And each week we alternate between a teaching or a testimony. So one week you can come in and you can hear a great story about somebody's life that has been changed, and it's so encouraging. And then the next week you can come in and hear about what are the tools that they used to get to where they were or where they are. And the way that everything is set up is we teach the 12 steps and the 8 principles all sequentially, and we start over at the end and go right on again. And when
it's on a
we do that,
on a continuous.
Yes. Yep. And when we do that, it's taught in a way that no matter what step or what principle you come in on, you can still get something out of the lesson. Okay. So you don't have to worry about waiting until January when they start over again. Right. You can come in at any time and still be able to pull into the lesson and be able to see some hope come from that. And then from there, we go into open share groups. Open share groups are gender specific. So guys are going to meet with guys, girls are going to meet with girls, and we do that to keep it safe. And safety is our number one priority in these groups. Just like an Alcoholics Anonymous kind of setup, everything is confidential. We don't talk about who comes to group. We don't talk about what was said in group. Right. We go in and we have 3 to 5 minutes of uninterrupted time to be able to share what it is that's going on in our lives, what God is doing in our lives, what we're struggling with. Yeah. And that is immensely powerful. And a lot of people will say, well, 3 to 5 minutes, that's no big deal. But one of the things that comes from that, or 2 things primarily, is 3 to 5 minutes may be the only 3 to 5 minutes that some people ever have during the week to be able to say anything without judgment, without fear.
In honesty and safety. Yeah.
And then you're also hearing the other people that are in the group sharing their struggles, and knowing that you're not alone, and knowing that there are people who are finding hope. And for us, we call it a band of brothers. This is a group of guys that are coming together and saying, we're in this together.
Give us some specifics of maybe what those open share groups. Give me just some topics, not topics, but categories of open share groups, in case somebody's not familiar.
Yep. Well, the open share groups, the way that we generally do this is off of the lesson nights. We get a handout that has the outline, and there's an acrostic that we fill out and all this kind of stuff. But at the bottom of that sheet is a question. That's our focus question. That is our place to start. So it's What it for coming out on lesson one in denial. What is something that you've been denying in your life? And so it's opening up about that. But it's a safe place to talk about really anything that's going on. That's just a starting point. We are talking about ourselves. We're not talking about other people when we're in there. One of the things I hear a lot is, my spouse is making me so angry all the time. No, we're going to use I statements. I feel. Let's keep the focus on ourselves. So it's not going complaining.
Well, just say why that is. I mean, you might assume, but why is that the approach? Why are we talking about I statements rather than you statements? Or he or she statements?
Yes. The I statements are all about what is going on inside my heart, what is going on inside my brain that is being affected by my environment. What do I have control of? What do I need to take to God and be able to work through?
Because
I can't fix it.
Exactly. We can't fix other people. We can't fix our spouses, our children, our parents. All we can do is ourselves, control ourselves, learn for ourselves, grow within ourselves. So the I statements keep that focus on, I'm the one that can change here, and yes. That's the power that's God working in my life. So tell me just briefly, then the step studies, how do the step studies fit in with CR in that larger group?
Yep. Step studies are then done on a separate evening where we have 4 workbooks that we go through in kind of the open share setting. But it's again gender specific. Right now I'm in a step study with 5 other guys, and we work through each one of those books in a really in-depth manner. So we're taking not just a one focus question, but we're going through several different questions for each step, for each principle, and we're really diving in deep. And that's when we see the most change for a lot of people, is when we're saying, I'm not just going to try to get sober, but I'm going to the root cause of what is going on in my life. Or I'm not going to just focus on my codependency. I'm going to, why am I codependent in the first place? And getting to that root cause and weeding that out, letting God do the work that he can do and repair that. And
so some people who might not be that familiar with Celebrate Recovery might automatically assume that it's just for people who have a substance use disorder or substance misuse. They drink too much or take too many drugs, or now it's become a full-blown addiction. But just for, it's not. So it's not just for people who have a substance use, either misuse or disorder. So who else? What other hurts, habits, and hangups? Give me some examples of what that might look like for somebody else.
Well, about 2/3 of the people that come to Celebrate Recovery don't come with any kind of addiction struggles. It's coming in for codependency. Somebody who just went through a divorce and they're trying to heal from that. Somebody who's gone through a traumatic event. Somebody who is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. There's a whole gamut. And like I said, when we're looking at what we're doing, it's a thing of going through and saying, what is the thing that's holding me back? It doesn't have to be anything. We talk about the big grandiose things, and I was shooting up peanut butter and whatever. It's the stories that says God has a good plan for me, and I want to be able to move into that plan. And so what's holding me back? How do we get that out of the way? And so it's really anything. I feel so there's so much hurt for me when I hear somebody say, well, my problems aren't that big. It's no big deal. It's fine. The reality is they're your experiences. And I want to validate those. I want you to know that God can work in those experiences, and that just because you haven't gone through maybe some big traumatic thing doesn't mean that you can't benefit from recovery. That we've all got places that we can grow.
We've all got stuff.
Yeah.
So just as we wrap up, I wanted to, what would you say to maybe an adult child who is in a relationship with a parent who is living in particular a substance use disorder. There may be some mental illness involved, and that adult parent is just stuck. But you're the child. You're trying to be in a relationship with your parent or your spouse or your child. I mean, what do we do when our loved ones? We know that they're in trouble, and we know that they are really, really struggling, but they are not yet able to access any kind of good care or help for themselves. What do we do, and how do we help them?
That's the $1,000,000 question. Everybody struggles with that at some point, and I want those people to know first off that I hurt for you, and I'm praying for you every day. Maybe not by name, but I'm praying for you. And what I want you to know is that you're not alone in this either. But I want you to take care of you first. I want you to build up a support system for you, because what you are going through is difficult.
Yes.
And you are not meant to be a doormat. You are just as worthy of love as anybody else. And so I want you to take care of you, build up your support system. And then from there, recognize that you can't fix the other person. As much as you want to do it, you desperately want to do it, you can't fix them. You can encourage them, you can love them. Remember to draw boundaries when necessary. I'm not going to enable somebody else's behavior, but it's saying, I love you. I'm gonna keep loving you. I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna support you as best I can without enabling you. And when you're in a position where you're ready to reach out for help, I'm going to be right here. I want somebody that if they're in a place where they, for whatever reason, are not willing to go to recovery and not willing to approach that, I want somebody else to be thinking when they get to that point, Nate didn't judge me. Nate loved me. He didn't always agree with me. He said things that I didn't want to hear. But he was there for me.
That's good.
And then when they are ready, then you're the one that they're going to turn to. But ultimately, God is the one that has to change the hearts and minds of somebody who's struggling, and know that there is always hope. I say if God can heal, or if God can bring Christ out of the grave, He can help your loved one. There is no issue, there is no thing that is beyond the power of God, the power and the reach of Jesus Christ. Everybody is capable of living a life that is extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nate. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your hope. Thanks for telling us about CR, and we're so grateful that Celebrate Recovery recognizes the fact that people live with a mental illness and also have other hurts, habits, and hangups that can benefit from healing. So just really grateful for that, and thank you for the work that you're doing, and thanks for spending this time with us today. Again, you guys can check out Celebrate Recovery at celebraterecovery.com and put in your zip code and find where there's a group near you. Thank you so much, Nate.
Thank you, Kay.